The message came at midnight ship time. Commander Cole stood alone in his quarters aboard the UES Defiant, staring at the holographic display that floated before him. The words burned into his mind like fire. Princess Vex had been taken. The Dominion, the most feared slaver empire in 3 star systems, had captured her during a diplomatic mission near the border worlds. Read the ransom demand 3 times. They did not want money. They did not want ships or weapons or territory. They wanted the jump gate coordinates to Earth. They wanted the path to humanities, undefended and open for their slave fleets. He closed his eyes and remembered Ambassador Vex's father. The old man had died 2 years ago, holding his hand in a hospital room on Mars colony. His last words still echoed in his memory. "Promise me you will protect her. Promise me. She is all I have left." Had promised, he never broke his promises. The next morning, he attended the emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. Representatives from 12 species sat around a curved table, their faces grave and their words empty. The delegate spoke of diplomatic channels. The ambassador suggested measured responses. The human representative from Earth talked about forming committees and assessing options. Listened for 2 hours, then he stood up and walked out. Nobody tried to stop him, nobody even noticed. They were too busy talking, planning, debating. They would still be debating when died in a torture chamber. That was how the galaxy worked. Talk first, act never. But was not a politician, he was a soldier. That night he forged his resignation letter. He used the authorization codes of a dead admiral to access the military shipyard. There, rusting in a corner of the docking bay, sat the Whisper, a decommissioned frigate that had been scheduled for scrapping. Her weapons were old. Her engines were tired. Her hull had more patches than original metal. She was perfect. Spent 3 days preparing the ship. He worked alone at first, welding plates, rewiring systems, loading supplies. On the second day, a shadow fell across his work. He looked up to find Sargent standing in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. "I heard what you're planning," she said. "Kept working. Then you know I can't take you with me. This is a one-way trip." Ambassador Vex saved my brother from a prison colony on Theta 7, pulled strings I didn't even know existed. My brother is alive because of that man. She stepped onto the ship. "Where do you need me?" By the end of the 3rd day, had 7 volunteers. The best pilot he had ever known. Wei, a demolitions expert who could make a bomb out of anything. Dr. Sarah, a field medic who had saved more lives than she could count. A young communications officer with a talent for hacking alien systems. A giant of a man who carried a plasma cannon like other men carried pistols. Singh, a sniper who never missed. And finally, old Jack, a retired Marine who had nothing left to lose. They gathered in the cargo bay of the Whisper on the 4th night, looked at their faces, one by one. He saw fear in some eyes, determination in others, but he saw no doubt. "I won't lie to you," he said. "The Fortress Moon is defended by 40 warships. Their prison barge has never been breached. Every species that has tried to fight them has lost." He paused. "We are 8 people in a broken ship. By every measure of logic and reason, we should fail." "Then why are we going?" Wei asked. Thought of, he remembered her smile, her laugh, the way she believed in people even when they did not believe in themselves. He remembered her father's dying words. "Because some things matter more than logic," he said. "Because if we don't go, nobody will. And because I made a promise to a dead man that I would protect his daughter, I intend to keep that promise." The Whisper launched at midnight. They slipped past the patrol ships using forged transponder codes. They jumped into hyperspace before anyone could stop them. The journey to territory would take 3 weeks through the darkest regions of the galaxy. During those weeks, trained his team. They ran combat drills until their muscles burned. They studied the layout of the prison barge until they could navigate it blindfolded. They prepared for every scenario, every trap, every disaster. but also did something else. Every night after the others had gone to sleep, he sat alone in the cockpit and stared at the stars. He thought about death. He thought about failure. He thought about all the ways this mission could end in tragedy. And he made peace with it. He was not afraid to die. He had been ready to die for years, ever since his wife and son had been killed in the colony raids. What he feared was failing. What he feared was breaking his promise. On the 18th day, picked up a coded transmission. Someone had leaked their route to they were expected. Gathered his team in the cargo bay. "It's a trap," he said simply. "They know we're coming, they'll be waiting for us." Checked his plasma cannon. "So we spring the trap and fight our way out." Shook her head. "One ship against 40, you're insane, Commander." Looked at her. Then he smiled, a small, tired smile that had no fear in it. "Maybe," he said, "but I made a promise, and I don't break promises." The Whisper dropped out of hyperspace 3 days later, directly into the shadow of the fortress moon. 40 warships hung in the void like metal predators, their weapons hot and ready. The prison barge orbited below them, dark and massive, holding thousands of slaves from 100 conquered worlds. Somewhere in that barge was waiting. Sat in the pilot's chair, his hands steady on the controls. His team stood ready behind him. 8 humans in a dying ship, facing an empire that had never known defeat. He opened the communication channel. The commander appeared on screen, a massive creature with scales like armor and eyes like black pits. "Human vessel," the commander hissed. "You have entered Dominion space. Surrender and you will be processed quickly. Resist and you will suffer." Cut the channel without responding. Then he flew straight at them. The plan was simple. Would fly the Whisper through the enemy fleet, drawing their fire and their attention. Meanwhile, the ground team would launch in a small shuttle, hidden in the chaos. They would dock with the prison barge through a maintenance shaft on the lower hull. They would find. They would get out. Simple plans were always the best. Simple plans were also the first to fall apart. Flew like a demon possessed. She twisted the old frigate through a storm of plasma fire, using the own ships as shields. The enemy commanders screamed orders at each other, confused and angry. They had expected the humans to surrender. They had expected fear. Instead, they got a mad woman in a dying ship, laughing as she burned through their formation. The shuttle launched without detection. Sat in the pilot's seat, his team packed tight behind him. Through the viewport, he watched the Whisper dance between death and glory. His voice crackled over the radio. "Maintenance shaft in 60 seconds, Commander. Make it count. Stay alive." No promises. He could hear her smile, then the radio went silent. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Way cut through the hull in 30 seconds. One by one, they dropped into the dark belly of the prison barge. The air smelled like metal and suffering. Distant screams echoed through the corridors. Somewhere, a machine hummed with a sound like grinding bones. Led the way, his rifle raised. Covered the rear with his plasma cannon. The others moved between them, quick and quiet, shadows hunting through shadows. They had studied the barge's layout for weeks. They knew every corridor, every junction, every guard station. What they did not know was that they had been waiting for them. The first ambush came at Junction 7. A squad of soldiers burst from hidden panels in the walls, their weapons blazing. Dove behind a support beam as plasma bolts screamed past his head. He fired back, dropping 2 enemies before they could take cover. Roared and stepped into the open, his cannon lighting up the corridor like a sun. 3 more fell, but the sound had alerted others. Alarms began to wail throughout the barge. "They knew we were coming," said, his voice tight with fear. "Keep moving," ordered. "We stop, we die." They fought their way through 4 more ambushes. At each one they lost time. At each one the enemy grew stronger. They were not stupid. They were hurting the humans, pushing them toward a kill zone. It came at the entrance to Cell Block Omega. The corridor opened into a wide chamber, and that chamber was filled with soldiers. 50 stood in formation, their weapons pointed at the single doorway where and his team would have to enter. Behind them, a massive energy barrier hummed with power. Behind that barrier could see cells stretching into darkness. Was in one of those cells. "Commander," Doctor whispered, "we can't fight through that." She was right. 50 soldiers entrenched and waiting, 8 humans tired and bleeding. The math was simple. Looked at his team. He saw the same calculation in their eyes. He saw the same acceptance. "Wei," he said quietly, "I need 5 minutes." Nodded slowly, he understood. "It has been an honor, Commander." "No," said, "the honor is mine." What happened next would be told in stories for generations. 3 humans charged into 50 enemies, screaming and firing, buying time with their lives. Plasma cannon became a wall of fire. Wei threw grenades until he had none left, then threw himself at the nearest soldier with a combat knife. Died last, still shooting, still fighting, still refusing to fall. Did not look back. He could not afford to. He led the others through a side passage, climbing through maintenance shafts and ventilation systems, circling around the kill zone. Plasma bolts followed them. One caught in the back. The old Marine went down hard and did not get up. "Keep moving," he gasped. "I'll hold them here, just keep moving." They kept moving. The shaft opened into cell block Omega from above. Dropped down first, landing hard on the metal floor. Followed, then Doctor. They were all that remained. 3 humans deep inside an enemy fortress, surrounded by an army. The cells stretched out before them, hundreds of prisoners from dozens of species. They stared at with dead eyes, too broken to hope. He ignored them, running past cage after cage, searching for one face. He found her in the last cell. Sat huddled in the corner, her clothes torn, her face bruised. She was thinner than he remembered, worn down by weeks of captivity. But when she looked up and saw him, her eyes went wide. Her voice cracked. "You can't be here, this is impossible." "I made a promise to your father." He examined the energy barrier. Military grade, designed to hold species 10 times stronger than humans. "I'm getting you out." "There's no way." A plasma bolt hit in the shoulder. He staggered but did not fall. Spun and returned fire, dropping the soldier who had shot him. More were coming. He could hear their boots on the metal floor. "Doctor," he said through gritted teeth, "how long to disable this barrier?" Doctor shook her head. "It's military encryption. Without the codes, we would need hours to hack it." Reached into his pack and pulled out the EMP device. Wei had built it for him, a last resort for exactly this situation. It would overload any electronic system within 10 meters. It would also overload anything touching the person who activated it. "No," screamed through the barrier, "you'll lose your arm." He looked at her, he smiled. "I made a promise." He activated the EMP. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. Lightning tore through his left arm, cooking the flesh from the inside. He smelled burning meat and realized it was his own body. The world went white, then red, then black. When he opened his eyes, he was on the floor. Doctor was wrapping something around the ruin of his left hand. The energy barrier was down, and was kneeling beside him, crying. "You idiot," she whispered. "You stupid, brave idiot." Forced himself to stand. His left arm ended at the wrist now, wrapped in bloody bandages. Blood ran from a dozen wounds he could not remember receiving. His vision swam. His legs wanted to fold beneath him. He stood anyway. "We need to move," he said. "Can you walk?" Nodded, wiping her tears. "Can you?" "I'll manage." He picked up his rifle with his remaining hand. "Do you copy?" Static, then faintly. "Still alive, Commander, but the whisper is dying. I can give you maybe 10 more minutes before they take her down." 10 minutes, it would have to be enough. They ran through corridors filled with bodies and fire. Fell at the third junction, shot through the chest. Doctor dragged her into cover, but there was nothing to be done. The sniper who never missed looked up with fatting eyes. "Get her home," whispered, then she was gone. And kept running. They carried between them when she stumbled. They shot their way through 2 more guard stations. Took another plasma bolt, this one through his thigh. He kept moving. He had promised. The shuttle was where they had left it. Shoved inside, then turned to cover Doctor as she climbed in. A soldier appeared at the end of the corridor. Shot him. Another appeared. He shot that one too. His vision was getting dark at the edges. "Commander, get in," shouted. He got in. The shuttle launched as the prison barge's weapons came online. Plasma fire chased them through the void. The Whisper appeared, battered and burning but still fighting. Rammed her ship into a cruiser, buying them 3 precious seconds. Then the fleet closed around them like a fist. 40 ships, hundreds of weapons, nowhere to run. Looked at, she was crying again. "I'm sorry," he said. "I wanted to get you home." The shuttle's engines died. Emergency power flickered and failed. The cold of space began to seep in. Darkness took them. And then light. Golden light, warm and impossible, flooded the shuttle. A force grabbed them, pulled them upward, toward something massive that blocked out the stars. His last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was a question. What could possibly scare the... Cole woke up in a room that looked like a dream. The ceiling rose high above him, carved from something that looked like white marble but glowed with inner light. The walls curved gently, covered in patterns that seemed to move when he was not looking directly at them. Soft music played from somewhere, notes that did not belong to any instrument he knew. The air smelled like flowers from a world he had never visited. He sat up slowly, waiting for the pain. It did not come. He looked down at his body and froze. His left hand was back. Not replaced with metal or plastic, not covered with synthetic skin. His actual hand, flesh and bone, as if he had never lost it. He flexed his fingers. They moved perfectly. He touched his shoulder where the plasma bolt had burned through muscle and bone. Smooth skin, no scar. He checked his thigh. Nothing, his chest, nothing. Every wound, every burn, every injury from the rescue gone, healed, erased. Had seen the best medical technology humanity had to offer. He had seen doctors perform miracles. Nothing came close to this. "You are awake." He turned toward the voice and saw them for the first time. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with silver skin that seemed to catch light from sources he could not see. Their eyes were large and deep, filled with colors that shifted like nebulas in deep space. They wore robes of flowing white that moved without wind. There were 3 of them, standing at the edge of his bed, watching him with expressions he could not read. Reached for a weapon that was not there. Old instincts died hard. "Where am I?" he demanded. Where is Doctor?" "Your companions are safe," the lead said. Its voice was soft, musical, neither male nor female. "The young human female is resting in the chamber next to yours. The doctor is with our healers, learning techniques that will take her years to understand. And the pilot of my ship." The paused. "She did not survive the battle. Her vessel was destroyed covering your escape. She fought until the final moment." Closed his eyes. Brave, brilliant, who had flown a dying ship against 40 warships and laughed while doing it. Gone. Like in Way and all of them gone. For him, for a promise. "Why am I here?" he asked, his voice rough. "Why did you save us?" "Because she wished it." They stepped aside and understood why the room felt like a temple. She entered like starlight taking form. Empress of the Ascendancy was ancient beyond human comprehension. Her species had walked between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Her empire stretched across galaxies, commanding power that made them look like children playing with toys. She had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on a shore, and she had grown tired of it all centuries ago. But she did not look tired now. She was silver-skinned and tall, but something about her was different. More. Older. Her eyes held depths that made feel small in ways he had never experienced. When she looked at him, he felt like she was seeing every moment of his life at once. "Cole," she said. Her voice resonated in frequencies that made his bones hum. The human who would not stop. He forced himself to meet her gaze. "You were watching during the battle. You saw everything." "I see many things." She walked closer, circling him slowly, studying him like a scientist studying a new specimen. "I have watched your species for a long time, curious creatures, so fragile, so short-lived. Yet you build, you dream, you reach for stars you cannot possibly touch." "We try." "Yes, you try," she stopped in front of him. "That is what makes you interesting. Most species, when faced with impossible odds, calculate their chances and surrender. They are logical, practical, safe." Her eyes burned. "You are none of those things." Thought of his team. He thought of the corridor filled with enemies, of charging into death with a smile on his face, of flying into the fire without hesitation. "We had something worth dying for," he said simply. "One female." The Empress tilted her head. "You sacrificed 7 lives, your hand, nearly your own life, for one female who was not even related to you by blood." "I made a promise to her father." "A promise to a dead man. A promise that bound you to nothing, that no one would have blamed you for breaking." "I would have blamed me." The Empress stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a sound like crystal breaking in slow motion, beautiful and strange. "Do you know why I intervened, Cole? In 10,000 years, I have not personally involved myself in the affairs of lesser species. I have watched empires burn and felt nothing. I have seen heroes rise and fall and forgotten their names before their bodies grew cold." She leaned close. Her breath smelled like ozone and ancient stars. "But you made me feel something I had forgotten existed. You made me feel curious." Did not know what to say. He had faced death and torture and impossible odds, but nothing had prepared him for this, standing before a being older than human history, being studied like an interesting puzzle. "They have contacted me," the Empress continued, stepping back. "They demand that I return you. You violated their sovereignty. You killed their soldiers. By galactic law, you are their property now." She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "They are quite insistent." "Then give me back." The words came out before could stop them. The attendants gasped. Even the Empress seemed surprised. "What did you say?" "Give me back to the..." He stood, forcing his legs to hold him. "But let go home. Let Doctor go with her. My people are dead. My mission is finished, but she matters. She's the daughter of the man who gave everything for peace between worlds. She needs to live." The Empress studied him with those ancient, bottomless eyes. "You would trade your life for hers, after everything you suffered, after everything you sacrificed?" "Yes." "You would go back to the knowing what they will do to you. The torture, the experiments, the slow death they promise to those who defy them." "Yes." "Why?" Thought about it. He thought about Ambassador Vex's dying words. He thought about his wife and son, killed in the colony raids years ago. He thought about all the people he had lost, all the promises he had tried to keep. "Because some things are more important than survival," he said finally. "Because if I let die to save myself, I wouldn't be worth saving. Because," he stopped, searching for the right words. "Because this is who I am. This is who we are, humans. We break, we bleed, we die, but we don't abandon each other. Not when it matters." The chamber fell silent. The Empress stood motionless, her eyes fixed on. Seconds passed, then minutes. The attendants watched nervously, unsure what would happen next. Finally spoke. "In 10,000 years," she said softly, "I have seen 1,000 species rise to power. I have seen them scheme and betray and destroy each other for scraps of territory and resources. I have seen courage, yes, but always courage with calculation. Always bravery with an escape plan." She reached out and placed her hand on shoulder. Her touch was cool, like moonlight made solid. But you have no plan. You have no calculation. You have only this irrational fire that drives you to stand when you should fall, to fight when you should surrender, to sacrifice when you should run. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This is what would destroy, not just a man, but a principle, a truth, a spark that might one day set the galaxy ablaze with something other than war and greed and fear. She released him and turned to her attendants. I will not allow him to perish, she announced. Prepare the fleet, we have a lesson to teach. The Dominion had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 67 species. They had enslaved billions of sentient beings. They had built their civilization on the bones of the weak and the suffering of the helpless. They had never known fear. Until now. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his sensors with growing disbelief. The readings made no sense. They could not be real, and yet they were. 700 ships had dropped out of hyperspace above the 700 dreadnoughts, each one larger than anything the Dominion had ever built. They hung in the void like mountains made of metal and light, their weapons systems glowing with power that made the stars seem dim. At their center, blocking out the sky, floated a vessel so massive it comprehension. The Eternal Throne, flagship of Empress, a ship that had not left ascendancy space in 300 years. Its communication officer spoke with a trembling voice. High Commander, we are receiving a transmission, all frequencies. It is being broadcast to every ship, every station, every colony in our territory. Show me. The main screen flickered and Empress appeared. She stood in a chamber of white and gold, her silver skin catching light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Behind her, visible through a massive viewport, the fleet looked like toys floating in an ocean. People of the Dominion, she said. Her voice carried no emotion, but somehow that made it more terrifying. I am Empress of the Ascendancy, keeper of the eternal flame, ruler of stars beyond counting. Gripped the arms of his command chair, his claws dug into the metal. 3 standard rotations ago, a human vessel entered your space. 8 humans in a dying ship, armed with weapons that should not have threatened a single patrol craft. They came to rescue one of their own, a female held prisoner on your fortress moon. The Empress paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at, though he knew she was seeing nothing but a camera. 7 of those humans died in the attempt. They fought your soldiers. They bled in your corridors. They sacrificed themselves so that their commander might reach his goal. And when their commander found the female he had come to save, he destroyed his own hand to free her. She stepped forward, and her voice grew colder. When his ship was destroyed, when escape was impossible, when death was certain, this human offered to surrender himself to your torturers if only the female might go free. He offered his life, his suffering, everything, for someone else. Another pause. This is the species you call primitive. This is the species you enslave and mock and dismiss. This is what humans are capable of, what they do naturally, without thought, without calculation. The Empress smiled. It was not a warm smile. I have watched this galaxy for 10,000 years. I have seen empires rise on greed and fall to their own cruelty. I have seen courage twisted into ambition, love corrupted into possession, hope crushed under the weight of practical concerns. Her voice dropped low. I had forgotten that anything else existed. But this human, this Cole, reminded me. He reminded me that the universe is not only darkness and calculation. He reminded me that somewhere, somehow, there are still beings who will run toward death to save another, who will break themselves rather than break their word. She straightened. The Dominion has demanded that I return Cole to face your justice. You have cited treaties and laws and agreements made in centuries past. Her eyes blazed. Let me tell you what I think of your treaties. The screen split. Suddenly, dozens of images appeared: prison barges, slave markets, breeding facilities, torture chambers. The worst crimes of the Dominion laid bare for all to see. "Your civilization is built on suffering," the Empress said. "Every world you rule runs red with the blood of innocents. Every resource you claim was taken from the broken bodies of those too weak to resist. You are not an empire. You are a disease." She raised her hand. "And I am the cure." The images vanished, only remained filling the screen. "Here are my terms. You will release every human in your custody. You will dismantle your slave fleets. You will destroy your prison facilities. You will abolish the institutions that profit from the suffering of others. You have one rotation of your to comply." High Commander found his voice. He stood, rage burning in his chest. "And if we refuse?" The Empress seemed to hear him, though she could not have. "If you refuse," she said softly, "then I will demonstrate what primitives can inspire an empire to do." The transmission ended. Turned to his officers. They were pale, shaking, their eyes wide with fear. But they had ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. They had never bowed to anyone. "Battle stations," he snarled. "All ships form defensive positions. We will show this ancient corpse what the Dominion is made of." The battle lasted 6 hours. In the end, it was not even close. Watched from the observation deck of the Eternal Throne, standing beside him. They had given them seats of honor, plush chairs facing a viewport that showed the destruction unfolding below. The Ascendancy did not fight like any force had ever seen. Their weapons did not simply destroy ships, they unmade them, reducing metal and flesh to atoms with beams of light that seemed almost gentle. Their shields did not absorb enemy fire, they redirected it, turning their own weapons against them. And they were precise, terrifyingly precise. Military vessels vanished, defense stations crumbled, weapons platforms dissolved into dust, but civilian ships were left untouched. Cities remained standing. The people of the Dominion watched their military might disappear while their homes remained safe. This was not war, this was surgery. "She's not trying to destroy them," whispered. "She's trying to teach them." Nodded slowly. "She wants them to live, to see, to remember." Remember what? That there's something more powerful than fear. By the time they had completed one rotation, their fleet was gone. Their orbital defenses were ash. Their slave markets were rubble. And High Commander was dead, killed not by Ascendancy weapons but by his own soldiers who had finally understood the truth. They had been fighting a god. The Empress summoned to her throne room when it was over. She sat on a chair carved from crystal and starlight, looking tired for the first time since he had met her. Behind her, through the viewport, the hung in space, intact, inhabited, alive. "It is done," she said. "The Dominion will survive, but it will never again enslave another species. The slave camps are being opened as we speak. The prisoners will be returned to their..." Bowed his head. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet, Commander." She rose and walked toward him. "What I have done today, it changes things. The other empires will take notice. They will wonder why stirred from her slumber after 3 centuries. They will ask questions." "And what will you tell them?" The Empress stopped in front of him. For a moment she looked almost human, tired, thoughtful, uncertain. "I will tell them the truth," she said. "I will tell them that I saw something worth protecting, something that reminded me why existence matters, why hope matters, why we bother building anything at all." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "I will tell them about you, Cole. I will tell them what humans are capable of, and I will tell them that the Ascendancy has a new interest, a new purpose." "What purpose?" The Empress smiled. "To find out what else your species can do." The journey home took 3 weeks. Spent most of it alone, standing at the viewport in his quarters aboard the Eternal Throne. The Empress had offered to transport them instantly. The Ascendancy had technologies that could fold space like paper, but had asked for time. Time to think, time to grieve, time to prepare for what came next. 7 people had followed him into hell. 7 people had trusted him with their lives, and 7 people had died so that he could escape. He said their names every morning. Wei, Sing, Jack. Sarah had survived, though she had lost an arm in the final escape, and who had died laughing, her ship burning around her, giving them the seconds they needed to live. He would not forget them. He would not let anyone forget them. Found him on the 15th day, standing at the viewport as usual. She had recovered quickly. The healers were even better than the ones who had saved. She looked healthy now, strong, her eyes clear for the first time since her rescue. She stood beside him without speaking. They watched the stars together. "What will you do when you get home?" she finally asked. Thought about it. He had forged his resignation. He had stolen military property. He had started an interstellar incident that had somehow ended with an ancient empress destroying an entire empire's military capability. There would be questions, hearings, probably a court-martial. "I don't know," he admitted. "Face whatever comes, I suppose." "They should give you a medal." "They might give me a cell." Shook her head. "If they try, I'll stop them. My father gave his life building bridges between worlds. I'll spend mine protecting the people who actually make a difference." She looked at him. "People like you." Did not know what to say. He had never been good with words. He was a soldier, not a poet. He did things. He kept promises. That was all he knew how to do. "Your father would be proud of you," he said finally. Smiled, a sad, gentle smile that reminded him of the old ambassador. "He would be proud of you, too." They reached Earth on the 21st day. The Eternal Throne did not land. It was far too large for that. Instead, it took position in high orbit, dwarfing the Moon, visible from every point on the planet's surface. For 3 days, humanity looked up at night and saw a ship bigger than mountains floating among the stars. The Empress met with Earth's leaders on the 4th day. She descended to the surface in a shuttle of white and gold, flanked by guards who moved like living statues. The meeting took place in Geneva, in a chamber that had hosted humanity's most important moments. Was not invited. He waited aboard the throne, watching the planet through the viewport, wondering what was being decided. When the Empress returned, she summoned him immediately. He found her in the throne room, sitting on her crystal chair, looking thoughtful. The attendants were gone. For the first time since he had met her, they were alone. "Your leaders are interesting," she said. "Confused, frightened, hopeful all at once. That's humanity for you. They want to know why I helped you, why I destroyed the fleet, why I am here." She smiled slightly. "They think there must be an angle, a price, something I want in return." Waited. I told them the truth. I told them what I told you, that I saw something in your species worth protecting, something that reminded me why existence matters. She paused. They did not believe me. Can you blame them? No, trust must be earned. That is true for all species. She rose from her throne and walked toward the viewport. Earth hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. I have given your leaders a gift. Technology that will advance your civilization by 1,000 years, medical knowledge that will save millions of lives, and my promise, the Ascendancy's promise, that humanity will be protected. Felt his breath catch. Protected from what? From the others. The Empress's voice grew quiet. Though we're not the only empire in this galaxy, there are others, older, darker, more dangerous. They have watched your species for centuries, waiting to see what you would become. Some hoped you would be worthy allies, others hoped you would be easy prey. She turned to face him. After today, they will know what you truly are. They will know that humans are neither allies nor prey. They are something else entirely, something unpredictable, something that can inspire even the ancient powers to stir from their slumber. Is that a good thing? The Empress smiled. It was the warmest expression he had ever seen on her face. "It is the only thing that matters, Commander. In a universe of cold calculations and brutal survival, you represent something different: hope, sacrifice, love without condition or expectation." Her eyes gleamed. "The galaxy needs that, even if most species have forgotten why." She reached into her robes and pulled out a small object, a crystal pendant that glowed with inner light. She placed it in his hand. "A gift," she said, "for you specifically. This contains a fraction of my authority. Show it to anywhere in the galaxy and they will help you. Consider it payment for reminding me what matters." Looked at the crystal. It was warm in his palm, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "I don't understand," he said. "Why me? I'm just a soldier. I did what anyone would do." "No," the Empress shook her head firmly. "You did what very few would do, and that is precisely why you deserve this. Because you do not think of yourself as special, because you do not see your own light." She placed her hand over his, closing his fingers around the crystal. "Go home, Cole, live your life. Love if you can find it, grieve what you have lost, build what you can. But know this, you changed something today. Not just the Dominion, not just the Ascendancy. You changed the galaxy. You reminded the old powers that courage still exists, that sacrifice still matters, that somewhere, somehow, there are still beings willing to stand against the darkness." She released his hand and stepped back. "Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that they have an Empress's favor. And tell them," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "tell them that I am watching, not to judge, not to conquer, but to hope, to see what else humanity can become." Descended to Earth the next day. He landed in a field outside Geneva, where was waiting with a crowd of diplomats and soldiers and journalists. The crystal pendant hung around his neck, hidden beneath his shirt. The Empress's words echoed in his mind. He expected arrests, he expected questions, he expected punishment. Instead, he found himself surrounded by cheering people. Strangers shook his hand. Children stared at him with wide eyes. Reporters shouted questions he could not hear over the noise. Pushed through the crowd and threw her arms around him. "Welcome home, hero," she whispered. He held her tight, closing his eyes against the noise and the chaos and the overwhelming pressure of so many people wanting pieces of him. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I just kept a promise." She pulled back and looked at him with her father's eyes, kind, wise, seeing more than most. "That's what heroes do, they keep their promises, no matter what." Above them, the eternal throne began to rise, slowly drifting away from Earth. In hours, it would be gone, returning to the far reaches of the galaxy. But Empress' words would remain, carried in the hearts of everyone who heard them. Humanity was not alone. Humanity had a protector. And somewhere in the infinite dark, an ancient power had found something worth believing in again. Cole looked up at the sky, watching the great ship disappear among the stars. He thought of and He thought of and. He thought of everyone who had died so that he could stand here in this moment under this sky. He made a silent promise to them, the same kind of promise he had made to Ambassador Vex. He would live, he would remember, and he would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of their sacrifice. That was all any of them could do. Live, remember, try. And sometimes, against all odds, keep their promises. The stars shone bright above the Earth that night, and for the first time in a very long time, humanity looked up at them without fear.